Our first topic here is going to bring us back over to Black Widow because the box office numbers have came out and it did surprisingly well. Like I said, so they've claimed $215 million worldwide as of right now, and it ends up leveling out to, what they're reporting anyway, is like 80 million domestic and then 80 million international. But then, which I think the most surprising thing of this is, they're saying they made 60 million on Disney Plus Premier Access, which I may be mistaken here, but I don't think they've ever released the numbers for any of the previous Disney Plus premiere films. So that definitely suggests that this one was far and away a much better, return for them as far as the Disney Plus pricing goes. Because, like I said, I don't think they've ever released the information about how much money X thing made. They normally just say like, "Oh, yeah," honestly, when they don't report anything, it generally just means that it didn't do as well as they'd hoped. So, it is kinda surprising to see. In some ways, I'd say it's surprising to see that it did that well on Disney Plus, but at the same time, it is an MCU movie, so I think this one was more poised to do better than kind of any other one that they've done. 'Cause, I correct me if I'm wrong, but up to this point in time, they've done, like, Mulan, then Cruella, and I think they did Raya on it as well, Raya and the Last Dragon, and then this. I don't think I'm missing anything because, like, the 2 Pixar movies, they just dumped those on there for free, which
Yeah.
that's kind of odd, but they definitely didn't report on any of those numbers prior, so I don't know, me and John, at least, we both said that, like, this would probably be the most likely movie to claim that, $100 million opening. If you wanna include international box office and include Disney Plus, then it definitely did, but domestically, it didn't quite get there. But I still think that I would consider this a pretty huge win, and I think Disney is
Yeah.
probably considering this a pretty huge win. Like, yeah, 'cause what was Fast 9 there, yeah, Fast 9, didn't that just only, I think that only made about 50 or 70 on its opening
70, it
weekend?
was 70.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
so
was
they
70.
surpassed that, and, yeah, I would consider this a
In Fast
pretty good win.
yeah. And then Fast 9 was not released streaming at the same time.
Yeah,
So
true.
Fast 9 was strictly theater views. So in terms of just raw viewers, I think it's clear that Black Widow had many more viewers than Fast 9 did.
Oh,
It
yeah.
not only beat it domestically, it also had all its additional or
As it
it not
should.
only beat it, the box had all its additional streaming, yeah.
Let's think too, I think at this
So
point in time, Fast 9 has made about 500,000,000. I don't know if that's domestic or international, though, I'll have to look it up. But Rick, you're the only one here, you haven't watched Black Widow yet, right?
correct, and I thought about it last night, actually.
Oh, yeah?
I didn't watch it, fortunately, but it did cross my mind.
Mm. Well,
Um,
what are your thoughts on, the them kinda breaking the pandemic record here?
that's
Do you
cool.
think this signifies or signals a return to form for the theaters?
I would say so. I mean, like, we're finally getting over this hump, which is crazy though, because I'm seeing a lot of stuff still about like this Delta variant and like, numbers rising and stuff like that. But I think for the most part, we're over the big hump. And yeah, I mean, I expected it to do really well. So it's a long movie. Oh no, that's Fast Nine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
2 hours and 23 minutes, damn. But I'm just not a Fast and Furious fan at all. Like, I'm sure they're enjoyable movies in their own rights and all that, but yeah, I mean, so Black Widow did better than Fast 9?
Yeah, so I just pulled up the numbers here, and domestically, bear in mind, Fast 9's been out for a month, so it came out on June 25th, and domestically, at this point, they've made 137,000,000, 378,000,000 internationally, and then, you're 500 and almost 520,000,000 worldwide in a month.
Yeah,
So,
it's a lot of money.
Black Widow, though, at this point in time,
Uh,
in 3
it's been like
days.
yeah, it's been like 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah, it has been. I thought I just
Sorry,
saw, no,
yeah.
you're right, 'cause I just
Sorry.
saw
No,
June, and then I know it was
technically, it
July.
was last month.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no.
That's where my brain
Sorry.
was at. No, but yeah, you're
Yeah,
right,
no,
it's
I
been a
got it.
couple weeks. Been a couple weeks, but Black Widow's already made about half of what, they've made in that point in time,
In
so
one weekend.
exactly, in, like, 3 days.
Yeah, so that's pretty
So
good. I'm curious if Black Widow is released internationally everywhere yet, or if they're still waiting on some markets because it looks like internationally, Fast 9 seems to be off to a much better start. I mean,
mhm.
378 versus only 80 for Black Widow at this point. So, Yeah.
Yeah, and when I looked at Box Office Mojo earlier for Black Widow, they didn't have the international numbers listed yet. So
Yeah.
so
It's
I don't
hard.
know.
It's also hard too with Disney. The whole Disney Plus premiere. I mean, it changes the game. I mean, if you to I just did a quick math, and if my math is right, the 60 million from Disney Plus premiere translates into 2 million buys, and so 2 million buys, that could also be, account for, a family, let's say a family of 4 buys it. I mean, it's only costing them that $30, and so that's, 4 additional views that aren't ticket sales. So I
Mhm.
don't know. It's the other thing to consider too is you have the $30 buy for the Black Widow, but then you have the $10 subscription fee for that month of access to Disney Plus. Yeah, so it's like
Mhm.
40
Yeah.
and then yeah, it's like 40 technically if you don't have it. If you don't have it and you are adding it specifically to watch Black Widow, it's $40 for that month. Plus then Disney, it's hard to account for how many people sign up for it or how many people continue their subscription with the purpose of, wanting to see this movie or signed up for this movie and then will jump over and start watching the Marvel TV shows and continue their subscription for another 2 or 3 or 4 even indefinitely. So Yeah, it's really I'd love to see the numbers from Disney on how many new additional subscribers they got just in this weekend.
Yeah,
right.
for
You
sure.
would have to you would have to attribute those to this movie.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I think too, just recently, I think they have over 200 million subs now, or I think they were close to 200.
200? Wow.
Oh, no, I guess maybe I don't know what I was reading before. They are at, as of May, when did this, because I just saw this a little bit ago, so maybe this is old information, but they're up to, at least as of May, 103 million subscribers. But I thought I saw something the other day that, like,
I thought
I'm remembering closer to 200, but I might be just
Yeah, I
misremembering.
thought we had talked recently and they had hit that 130, 140 mark.
Hmm, yeah, I thought they were
So
pumping pretty solid. But yeah, I would like to, I don't know if they would ever release that information, but it would be interesting to know how many, like, subscribers or, like, come on board when, one of these big premiere movies comes
yeah,
out.
yeah.
But again, too, it is kinda like, well, I don't know if those numbers would even really matter if, like, they just cancel it immediately afterward.
True.
It's kinda
Yeah,
like a fluff number at that point, but
yeah. Sure.
either
I
way.
wonder how many people I wonder how like how well do we know how much Fast 9 made this past weekend? I mean, you said it's up to 130 something?
I had it up on another site, let me see.
I'm curious how much because 'cause I'm really curious, there aren't a ton of big movies coming out this summer. There is definitely some more still to come, but it doesn't seem as packed as it normally is during the summer, so I'm curious how well if maybe Black Widow will have a longer run. And, our typical thinking of the box office pre-pandemic was you had your opening weekend and then you had maybe another 2 or 3 decent sized weekends before things really fell off. And so I wonder if this will be more a case where it's just a slow burn. Because like you were mentioning the other day on stream, even A Quiet Place 2 is still making money at the box office and adding decent numbers each week, even though it's been out almost 2 months at this point.
Hmm. It looks like, according to Variety, Fast 9 pulled in 10, almost $11 million.
At the box office? That's
Mhm.
that's sort of its let's see, this is its 3rd weekend, is that right?
Yep.
So I guess that's not bad. That's not terrible. You've dropped from 70 to 10 in 2 weekends. That's it's still decent.
Yeah, and then they also had the Purge movie that came out, the Forever
Okay.
Purge, and then they had the Boss Baby movie. So they had more competition come out. I mean, not direct competition, but nevertheless. Then A Quiet Place brought in another 3 million. So they're still bringing in money too. So they're up to 150.
With
Pretty good.
just with my experience personally with theaters around my area being completely open now, and they're not even doing the what is it, the safety seat in between you at the theater now. They're
Mhm.
just putting people right next to each other. It Yeah. seems like things are completely back to normal, but then, I start thinking about things in kind of a pre-pandemic way. But then, like Rick was mentioning, there's all this news about the Delta variant, and there are people that are still justifiably very concerned about the virus, and they're
even if they've been vaccinated, especially if they haven't, they're very concerned about, going out and seeing stuff. So all this is kind of tempered with that,
Yeah,
with that we're still in this pandemic type era.
Well, and like you said too, not to mention with like this film in particular, the Black Widow movie being on Disney Plus, there's just a lot of people
Sure.
as they made $60 million that just didn't go. It was like they didn't need to.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, why would I risk it? If I do have serious concerns about it, if I don't want to get vaccinated for whatever reason,
right.
but I'm also concerned about it, why wouldn't I just spend the $30? Because, $30 will get you and somebody else. It'll cost just as much for you and somebody else
You could have a
for 30
party,
bucks.
have
Yeah,
people over,
exactly.
and
Any additionally you bring in, you're actually getting out ahead as far as
mm.
ticket sales go.
I
yeah.
forget what country it is, but in an international market, I think it may have been Norway or something. I saw somebody said that the theaters out there um, refused to play Black Widow because of the day and date release. So, like, this person was kind of complaining because their only option was to buy it on Disney Plus
Hmm.
because their theaters wouldn't show it. Because there are some, some theaters out there, and I'm sure there's some here in the states that do it as well. I don't know, but like they're not for the whole day and date release thing because it directly affects their business. So it's like if
True.
you're gonna do that, then we're
Sure.
not gonna play your movie.
Exactly, yeah. I
Like,
mean, it makes
But
sense.
I mean that's almost like, well, I don't like your shoes, so I'm gonna chop off my feet so I don't have to wear them.
it
Like,
is
I
kind
mean,
of
it
corporate
just
suicide, like because it's like a
like,
movie that you'd
you
want to play.
Yeah,
Like
right.
you would make money
exactly, even it
regardless.
like, "Oh, no, we're not gonna make, $1,000,000 this weekend, we're only gonna make 500,000, so we're not gonna take that 500,000." Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
theaters have been hurting for a long time, like,
They could
I
use
don't
the
know,
money.
this is the way the world works. You fight against her, you find a way to, streaming is kind of the way of the future, so, you find a way to work with it or you go ahead and just close up shop, I would think.
Oh yeah. Especially because like if there was a more of a united front and, like, a bigger, because I don't know what company this was. This could have been, like, a mom and pop theater, like, I have no idea.
Sure,
But if it
sure.
was, like, AMC theaters refused to do it, like, worldwide,
That'd be pretty big.
then, like, yeah, like, that would be, like, you have more, ground to stand on there, because that's gonna be a significant dent in Disney's revenue at that point. But when you don't have your bigger theater chains actually, like, you know, boycotting that, if you will, it's just kinda like you still need the money, and so you might as well just do it.
Yeah,
Like,
just
I
do it.
get it, like, fundamentally that, like, yeah, you're not for it, but at the same time, yeah. Is it the best idea to, like, stand your ground on that movie? Because Disney's gonna rake in money regardless, so it's like, who needs it more? Like, d does your theater
Yeah.
need it more? Or is taking the stand, but, like, you being the only one doing it, not that this company wasn't the only one doing it, but nevertheless, like, I would pick the battles a little bit better. Like, maybe,
Right.
not the Marvel movie that's gonna be guaranteed money, like, maybe do it for another
Yeah,
movie,
something
like
smaller,
yeah,
whatever.
right. But I get it. That makes total sense, so we'll just have to see. Maybe I don't think Disney's ever said, like, what their full plans are at this point with the whole day and date release thing, like the premiere access stuff. It was obviously something that came about primarily because of the pandemic,
Right.
but I'm wondering if they're even gonna bother doing it anymore, like, once everything is back to normal, quote, unquote. Because there still could
Yeah,
be
like,
some
well,
films they don't care about doing it for, and they'd prefer to do it for.
they haven't announced, like, if Shang-Chi is gonna do it yet. They haven't announced if Eternals is gonna do it yet. So, well, are they taking a wait and see approach and just because they do have dates for those as far as the box office goes right now.
And when I think too, like, they haven't done enough, we'll call it field research to see if it's even viable for them as a company. Because like I said, this is the only one that they've even reported the numbers for. So it's like they would
Yeah,
actually
but
need to try it more to see if it's even financially beneficial for them. But
yeah,
I
but
don't know.
to be fair, they went ahead and did it with Black Widow, and it's been 6 months since they started doing it with Mulan, and then they've had the successive release. I know they announced Cruella and Black Widow kind of at the same time as being to Premiere Access, but they had Mulan and Raya and the Last Dragon before that, and so they must have felt relatively comfortable with the numbers that came in from those two movies to go ahead and do it with Cruella and Black Widow.
Yeah.
When I think too, for like when they announced that Black Widow and Cruella were going to be doing the Disney Plus thing, we still weren't in a place where they knew 100% of theaters are going to be open.
Yeah.
Like,
That was back then, yeah.
yeah, so it turned out that like in between that time frame, Godzilla versus Kong came out and ended up doing pretty damn good in the theaters. But they had already announced this, and like I'm sure they probably would have not done Black Widow, probably would have done Cruella, but I still think they kind of needed to do it with a bigger movie like this to see if it's even viable for them,
Yeah, if it's feasible.
to do with any movies. Because like they obviously weren't too thrilled with the numbers for anything else they've done because they never announced what the numbers were.
Yeah, they're not, like,
Right.
bragging about it or anything.
Yeah, and but at the same time, like those weren't really movies that you could really get a good, any really good data for because they weren't movies that would have made $1 billion.
Right.
You know what I mean? They
Mhm.
kind of do need to try it with some of these bigger films just to see if it's, how much money they're going to lose kind of thing. Because a smart thing to do would be to do Black Widow and then not do Shang-Chi and compare the numbers. It's like, did we make more money with this Marvel movie not being on Disney Plus, or did it do better on having it on Disney Plus, or like comparable? Like, I don't know, because that like you
Yeah.
said, the landscape is going to change no matter what. Like streaming's a thing, so if the theaters, as much as they would not like it by any means, for them to like do day and date releases and things like that, if the studios are making money that way and they all have their own streaming services, like it's not something that they're really going to be able to stop. And it's going to come a point where the theaters are going to like refuse to play the movie. But then if the distributors, these studios end up not really needing them all that much, it's going to be kind of, it'll be a sticky situation.
Yeah, right.
Because I don't think that they'll end up making as much money just doing the straight streaming purchases, because the problem you run into is, like, everybody who bought Black Widow now, they can just watch it over and over again until it comes back out. You don't get the repeat viewings. Because
Right.
like, why would somebody like, before, if I wanted to go see Black Widow, I'd have to go pay for it in the theater, and if I wanted to see it again, I'd have to go pay for it in the theater. And that's gonna be the biggest impact on the streaming, like, day and date stuff, is, like, everybody who's bought it on Disney Plus now, they can just watch it again. Like, they don't
Right.
have to pay again. They can just watch it again.
Yeah,
They
they can
already
watch it
bought it.
20
Mhm.
times, you know?
Yeah. So,
Do you think there's any, do you think people will you think there's anybody that would buy it on Disney Plus, like, enjoy it enough that they would be like, "Oh, I'd like to go see it in the theater," and now that the crowds have died down, I feel more comfortable doing that.
I think some would, but it would be a small amount.
Just yeah, probably not very significant.
Yeah, because I feel like anybody who is, like, a big movie guy and likes to go to the theater and thinks the theatrical experience is the way to do it, then they would just go do it. Like, they
Right.
wouldn't even bother with Disney Plus. I think the opposite is actually more likely, that if you, like, loved the movie and wanted to watch it again, maybe you would just buy it on Disney
Go
Plus,
home and
like,
yeah,
instead of going back out to the theater to do it.
Right.
Like, I could see
yeah,
that happening more so than the reverse,
yeah.
but at the same time, like, who knows? Like, I don't think
We've
either way,
actually
those would be a big amount of people who would do that either way.
Right.
There's actually a decent release every week through the next, like, 4 weeks. You've got Space Jam next week, you've got Snake Eyes the week after that, you've got Jungle Cruise the week after that, and then you've got Suicide Squad the week after that. So, there will be some competition for theaters, I guess, to some extent.
Mhm.
Right.
Well, Suicide Squad 2, it's doing day and date as well with HBO Max.
Well, and so is Space Jam.
Oh, yeah. So
So,
we got that.
HBO
Sure.
Max will have both of those, and then Jungle Cruise is Disney's other release, and that's doing the only one that's not doing day and date is Snake Eyes, I believe,
Yeah.
out of those,
I'll
so
be curious to see how much money Snake Eyes makes.
Right.
It's a new franchise, if you will, but I mean, it's completely disconnected from the other GI Joe one. So it's like, yeah, I'm curious to see if if there's going to be any interest in it.
Right.
Like in all honesty,
Apparently, the women folk really enjoy that guy
they
that's
do.
playing the lead there.
They
Right.
So,
do.
like, I'm really curious to see. I was thinking, as my fiance has put it, that's a boy movie, and I was thinking like that'd be male dominated. But apparently, from what I've been hearing, the females don't mind that guy.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, they Henry Golding's got that going for him for sure. He'll get some female attention, like
Yeah.
female
Okay.
eyes on the movie for sure. But it was funny
Okay.
because when we went to what did we go to see? When we went to go watch A Quiet Place, when I was walking into the theater, there were these two older women, these two older white women. And as we walked by, or it was just I was just by myself. I had to tell my wife about it because I had ran to the restroom during the previews. But I came back, and these two older white women walked by the Shang-Chi poster, and I just heard one of them they looked over at the poster and was just like, "Oh, I wanna see that." And it's just a poster, the only thing
Yeah.
on the poster is the guy who plays Shang-Chi. It's
Right.
nothing else.
Yeah.
Like, so it's just like, well, there you go. Like, so just
Okay.
the looks got those 2 tickets sold right there.
Right. Right.
Not obviously not Henry Golding, but it was a similar situation because like, my wife thinks Henry Golding's attractive, and I would say
He's a handsome
he's a
dude.
pretty handsome guy. Like, he's a pretty handsome dude. So, I wouldn't be surprised if a little bit more women flock to these movies just because of the actors who are in them.
Right.
Like, that's been a
Sure.
thing anyway. Like, people used to go see Tom Cruise movies because of Tom Cruise. People still do for the most part, but the movie star kinda quality is kinda gone by the wayside anymore. Like, but
Mhm.
Right.
nevertheless, let's move on here. So, guys, the question is, what do you think about Black Widow making $215 million worldwide? I think it's pretty good. I think they would. I definitely think they consider their, Disney Plus revenue a vast success because, like I said, they never even released any of the information from their previous releases from the Disney Plus numbers. So, I think they're pretty happy about it. So, whatever you guys think, let us know down in the comment section below.